Garfalcon's paired with Wave Splitter is truly a work of art. This build can single-handedly carry you and your fire team through any Grandmaster, raid, or even solo dungeon with zero downside. Now if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around and learn the ins and outs of this insane build. I will have a dim link in the description below if you want to put this build together as we go. And since you are already down there, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all my latest build videos. So what can this build do for you? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can expect infinite orbs of power and void wells, high uptime on being invisible, constantly making every enemy volatile and weak, as well as being unkillable from devour and overshields. The featured exotic of this build is none other than Garfalcon's. For those of you that don't know, the exotic perk, See Me, Feel Me. Your void weapons gain volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. A note for this is you have to cancel your invisibility to gain volatile rounds. If you just wait out your invisibility, then the volatile perk will go away. So you have to make sure that you use this while you're invisible and you cancel it out. When you are invisible and defeat a combatant while using a finisher, all of your weapons gain bonus damage. You and your nearby allies gain a reserved overshield and improved class ability regen. These reserved overshields can be deployed by using a class ability. We're going to be getting overshields from picking up void wells anyway, so this part isn't as crucial. It's mainly just that first part. And our featured weapon exotic is the Wave Splitter. Its intrinsic trait, Harmonic Laser. Laser damage has 3 power levels that oscillate while the trigger is held down. Its other trait is Supercharged Battery. Collecting an orb of power grants a period of maximum power and starts with an automatic reload. Sustained fire in this mode suppresses targets. We're going to be creating an insane amount of orbs of power, and we'll have different ways of collecting these orbs of power. So this essentially makes it to where you never have to reload this weapon, and this weapon will deal bonus damage on top of suppressing targets. As for your other weapons, you can be running a Riptide with Chill Clip and Lead from Gold, as well as a Void Machine Gun if you would like. Depending on what activity you're doing, you might want to change it up. Like if you need something for different champions, you can run different weapons, or if you need higher boss DPS, you could be running a rocket launcher. Now let's get into the subclass. For our super, we're using the Shadow Shot Deadfall. Tether foes to a void anchor, weakening and suppressing them for you and your allies. The void anchors fired from Shadow Shot pull targets towards the impact point, which then becomes traps and wait for prey. Void anchors have increased range and last longer. For our dodge, we're using Gambler's Dodge to recharge our melee. You can use the other dodge, which will reload your weapons, but I prefer this one because I like using my smoke bomb as another form of weakening enemies. And speaking of the smoke bomb, throw a smoke bomb which attaches to surfaces and pings enemy radar. Weakens targets on detonation. So having an extra form of weakening from just using smoke bombs is a pretty powerful thing. For your grenade, it's up to you. I use the vortex just for damage and sucking enemies into the middle. If you need more suppression, which will also deal with overload champs, you can use the suppression grenade. For our aspects, we're using Vanishing Step. Dodging makes you invisible. This is going to pair nicely with Garfalcon's, as well as some armor mods that I'll show you later on. And Stylus Executioner. Defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight. After performing a Stylus Execution, your next melee attack while invisible weakens targets. On to our fragments, we have Echo of Persistence. Void buffs applied to you, invisibility, overshield, and devour have increased duration. We're going to be having all 3 of these proc pretty much constantly and at the same time, so it's just going to give us longer duration. Echo of Starvation. Picking up a Void Breach or a Orb of Power grants Devour. This is our source of getting Devour, which is going to keep us super healthy. Echo of Domineering. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. Let me know in the comments how badly I butchered it. But after suppressing a target, you gain greatly increased mobility for a short duration, and your equipped weapon is reloaded from reserves. Defeating suppressed targets creates a Void Breach. This entire fragment pairs super great with the Wave Splitter. Echo of Harvest. Defeating weakened targets creates an Orb of Power and a Void Breach. We're going to be able to make targets weaken through sources from our snare bomb as well as through the artifact. And speaking of the artifact, next up is our artifact mod. First column is up to you. I would recommend having overload trace rifle for our wave splitter, but besides that, in column 2, make sure to have authorized mods void, and you can also run authorized mods melee. In that third column, the only one that's important is Unto the Breach. Defeating a void debuff target creates a void breach while your void subclass is equipped. This is just another method of creating void breaches, which is gonna pair with our other artifact mods. And into that fourth column, protective breach. Picking up a void breach gives you an overshield or refreshes your existing overshield. This overshield is pretty powerful. It's just gonna make us extremely hard to kill. You can also run counter charge if you're dealing with champions. Gain a stack of armor charge when you stun a champion. And in that final column, you want supernova. Picking up a void breach causes your next source of void damage to create a large weakening pulse, which is gonna trigger a lot of different things, but just allowing you to do more damage through weakening all the enemies nearby just from picking up a void breach is super nice. Thing to note is if you have a grenade or smoke bomb on the ground and it's doing damage over time and then you pick up a void breach while it's going off, that will trigger it because that's a void damage. So while using this, you want to make sure that you understand that, and you might not have it if you are dealing damage with a grenade or something. But if used correctly, the first shot out of a void weapon, so our wave splitter, it's going to hit an enemy and all enemies nearby will become weakened, and killing a weakened enemy is going to create a void breach. So just through the artifact perk alone, it's going to create a gameplay loop of you being able to pick up a void breach, which will give you an overshield, which when you shoot a target, it'll weaken a bunch of people nearby, which will create a void breach, and you see the gameplay loop. Moving on to our armor mods. In our helmet, we're using Void Siphon. Rapid Void Final Blows create an orb of power, just another way to create orbs of power. We're pretty much going to have an insane amount of orb creation through all various different types of ways. I'm using Special Ammo Finder, which is just going to increase the drop chance of special ammo on kill because I'm using 2 special weapons, as well as Ashes to Assets, gain super energy on grenade kills. In our arms, we're using Firepower. Your grenade final blows create orbs of power, as well as Heavy-Handed or powered melee final blows create orbs of power, as well as Focusing Strike. Grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a melee attack. In your chest piece, it's kind of up to you and what content you're running. You should be using any type of resists for that content. Like if you're having problems with people killing you from long range, you should be using sniper damage resist, people killing you short range, melee resist, or any type of element you're coming across. In our legs, we're using Reciprocation, replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power, as well as Absolution, reduces all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an orb of power, and Void Weapon Surge. Your void weapons gain a small bonus to damage while you have an armor charge. Your armor charges now decay over time. In our class item, we're using Bomber, reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Powerful Attraction automatically collects orbs of power when you activate your class ability. So anytime we dodge, we're going to collect all the orbs of power nearby, which we should have a lot of them, which is going to instantly heal us, recharge our abilities, pretty much get our dodge back, as well as Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. When used correctly, this build will empty rooms and make you unkillable. I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to get outside and touch some grass.